Hey, my friends, it's Bill MacDonald, the reading and writing doctor here. And today we're going to talk about run-ons or fragments, but specifically today is going to be about run-ons. Now, I want to show you that using a Mr. Potato Head, sometimes we have to differentiate our instruction. We have to kind of change it up a little bit. I want you to notice that without the hat, he looks like me. We're both bald, and we'll say she, I guess, because she's got her eyelashes. She's got her senses, what she can see and smell and taste and hear and touch. But I want you to notice that she has red feet, red feet, her stop sign, her punctuation mark. So if you're teaching your students to write a sentence, one way is to make sure that every sentence starts with a cap, as in a capital. It has a subject and a verb that the students can see. The person, the place, the thing, the person, the place, the thing, the idea, singular, the people, the places, the things, the ideas, plural, and that there's some sort of action, the verb. Let me put her hands up. There's the verb, and there's some sort of action, there's a predicate, and then there's an ending, a stop sign, a punctuation mark. And so I've said to you several times that every sentence is like a street that has a uh, bunch of cars, bunch of words that are hopefully spaced together where they're not tailgating each other, where you push the space bar, and then you have a stop sign at the end. So the question we're going to look at today happens to be based on rule number 2 in our editing passages. Every single student is going to get 2 passages, about 8 questions in elementary, about 9 in middle school, and about 11 in high school. You're all going to get the same kinds of questions. So the one I want to look at today is, what is the correct way to write sentence blank? What is the best way to write sentence blank? Usually when best is capitalized, it means they're a distractor. And so whenever you see the word correct or best and singular sentence, that's what you can highlight on the test, and then you can label ROF, that it's a run-on or a fragment. Okay? So when you see down here, sentence as in sentence boundaries, rule number 2 and 3 have to do with sentence boundaries. So we're going to check and see if that sentence is a run-on or if it's a fragment, and if it has one of these issues. And what I want to show you is that the sentence that we're going to look at is a run-on. So I'm going to share my screen with my practiced test, which is right there. Okay. So I want you to notice when I count the words, and we'll kind of do it with the bouncy ball here. Um, Capital, sometimes it's, it's, it is great to play a round by myself, comma, bouncing on the table. It helps me relax and get rid of stress. Period, a longer bounce. So the period is that red stop sign at the end. So if I count the words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay. So one of the activities that you can do is they sell Slinkies about I think it's 4 or 6 for $1 at Walmart and 8 for $1 at the Dollar Tree. So because there are 18 words without a period, one way that your students can do it with a real Slinky and not use this tool as a toy is to stretch the Slinky 1 inch for each word that they see without a punctuation. I want you to notice that it said sometimes it's. So sometimes it's, and I'll bend it high. I'll bend it high for an apostrophe. And then we are gonna see a couple of commas. So whenever you're stretching, if let's say you're on the 5th word and you get to a comma, then you'll bend low for a comma. You'll bend high for an apostrophe or a contraction, and then you close it when you get to a stop sign, a period, if you ever get to one. So that's what I want to do with you guys for this video with this problem here. So we'll annotate very quickly, reading it softly because it's a testing day. We will go ahead and circle all of our punctuation because that's the biggest issue when it comes to run-ons and fragments, that the students don't pay attention to them. So first I'll do all the stop signs, period, question mark. So if you're going to be good at writing, you've even got to practice the punctuation marks when you're reading. Reading comes first in the alphabet before writing. So if I'm going to get good at a skill in writing, I've got to learn how to get good at it when I'm reading first. Okay. So that I'm paying attention to those. I'm treating those streets, those sentences like streets. Uh, I believe that's all of my stop signs. So then I'll switch to the yellow and I'll circle all the commas yellow where I'll slow the sentence down. So there's the apostrophe, a contraction where we toss the ball up in the air if we're doing the ball activity, or we bend the Slinky up for apostrophe and contraction and bend it low if we're uh, doing a comma, a colon, or a semicolon. And then we close it. So we saw that there were 18 words. So we need to be able to write in there 18 words equals 18 inches. All right. So it says, capital, read this sentence, singular, from the passage, period. Capital. I'm going to pay attention that, remember that my little potato head, the beginning of every sentence. And so think of capital, the underline, capital, proper noun, and first word. But what you can think about, you can tell your kids is, because we're doing it on a computer, shift, size, shape. Let's say that again. Whenever you push you want a capital letter, you have to do one thing that causes two things to happen. You push the shift button, hold it down, and it's going to change the size and the shape of the capital letter if you happen to have a proper noun. Okay. I did forget one little um, yellow punctuation mark, so I'll take care of that right later. All right. So if you look at me in the screen, um, capital, sometimes it's great to play a round by myself. comma, it helps me relax and get rid of stress. So you would open that to 18 inches because of the 18 words, and then you would close it. On the real test, when I work with students, they're trained to open and close an imaginary slinky for checking for the length of their punctuation. They'll pretend to bend it low for commas, colons, semicolon, depending on the grade. They'll bend it high for apostrophes, contractions, and opening and closing quotation marks. Okay. So because we see the word, um, we see the word, what is capital? What is the best? And then sentence 7, it's one sentence. Then what you have to remember is, oh, that was rule number 2. And so we could label that this sentence is either a run-on or it's a fragment. Now, I only put fragment because once in a very blue moon, the sentence mistake is going to be a fragment, but probably about 90 to 95% of the time, it's been a run-on. All right. So let's kind of read these softly and figure out the process of elimination so we can get rid of one at a time. All right, let me read and then we'll talk about some issues and why we might get rid of some things. Capital, because of Mrs. Potato Head, Mr. Potato Head having a capital at the beginning of the sentence and the stop sign at the end. Capital, sometimes it is great to play around by myself because it helps me relax and get rid of stress. So it helps me relax, ding, and get rid of stress, ding. Two different things, not three, period. Because that one is stating the reason that you're doing it, it's just adding the reason why you like to play a round of golf by yourself. We would think that that would be an okay, acceptable idea. And that way, if you're going to have this longer sentence, then you better make sure you connect the idea. Well, it's the reason that it helps me. And so you can play something that I call around the words in 80 ways to start with how, why, where, oh, when. You often put a comma then. So let me see let me show you what I mean by that. If I flip the sentence around, capital, because it helps me relax and get rid of stress, comma, sometimes it's great to play around by myself, period. So you can flip that order. And so when the reason's in the back, you're just adding uh, what they might call an adverb clause, and that's fine. But if you flip it to the front, and that's not the way it is, but it would have been an acceptable way to write the sentence. Letter B. So I think it's going to be the answer, but we won't touch it till the end. Letter B, capital. Sometimes it is great to play around by myself, period, because it helps me relax and get rid of stress. Now, this could work, but a lot of people don't like the idea that whenever you have like a conjunction or one of these uh, words, because it's a sign of a dependent clause where this is dependent on the independent clause. And so for the sake of um, most students that will get something like this, we're going to call that a run-on in this case. And the next one, capital, sometimes it is great to play around by myself, comma, bending the slinky low, but it helps me relax and get rid of stress, period. Because It's great as a positive thing, and getting rid of stress and relaxing is a positive thing. You those are complementary to each other. So these are, but would turn it into an opposite statement. So we wouldn't want to select that one. Capital D. Sometimes it is great to play a round by myself, comma, so, short bounce for a shorter pause, or bending the slinky low, or it helps me relax and get rid of stress. Because both of those things are positive, and I'm going to write that. So we have a positive statement, and then they want to cram a comma, a fanboy, uh, comma, or statement. And then we have a positive statement. You wouldn't use or because it would be maybe a positive or a negative or a positive or something different because those two complement each other. We wouldn't want to use something like that. So we would probably say, let's get rid of B because it's a run-on. Let's get rid of C because it's not an opposite statement. And let's get rid of C because we can see here that these are two positive things. So the one that we would end up selecting would be, with my mouse in my test, letter A would be the correct one. So that's what it would look like. And I kind of did this question beforehand, and I took a screenshot. So you'll see this on the video. So a couple of ideas that I do want to share with you is that lost myself here. My mouse, stop sharing. Um, a couple of ideas you want to add the Saggy Slinky. So if you have a sentence with 50 or 60 words, then of course with these little slinkies, you're going to end up breaking the slinky. So with students at the beginning of the year, you might have to get that metal slinky that can kind of go on forever without breaking. But if you're telling your students, do this activity with an imaginary slinky, because I can't trust you to use a tool without turning it into a toy, then they can practice the concept and they just open 1 inch for each word that they see, bend low for commas, colons, semicolons, bend high for apostrophes, contractions, and uh, opening, sorry, opening and closing quotation marks. And the other reviewing idea here is if this is a sentence, for sure that we need a capital letter where you push shift. And so, of course, whenever you're wearing a cap, it does make you look taller than you really are. So it changes the size. Once I push shift and hold, changes the size and the shape. So we have a subject, a person, a place, a thing, an idea. We have some action, the verb, the predicate, and then we have a stop sign, the punctuation mark. We have an exclamation point, a question mark. Basically, we have to have stop. So if we don't have the stop sign, then we have a run-on. And some people will say, and I've had people tell me this, oh, well, I work with eighth graders. I work with high school students. Well, Jesus worked with adults and he had to do analogies and parables and allegories. And so please don't tell me that you can't do these activities with your students. If all you're doing is worksheets, you're going to get sheets that don't work because some kids are so disconnected. They need to see things in a different way so that they can understand it. So these are two different ways that you can look at run-ons and fragments. If you prefer to stick to just the ROF idea, that's fine. The color coding, that's fine. Be sure to email me if you have a question or need some guidance. I look forward to working with all of you guys who are in the ER, the extended responses and editing revising. This is an editing um, activity for the most commonly missed types of questions, the sentence boundaries. As I mentioned a couple of times, that the students tend to only get 20 to 50% correct because they don't practice that skill enough, and there's so many things involved. So thank you guys. God bless and have a wonderful day.